Hello folks and welcome. So today's video is really about graphical rsync or Grsync on a network. So I'll just give you a map, but I'm also going to talk about other options. So basically what I'm going to do is use Grsync to sync files from this computer, which is running Cinnamon, over to the simple server, which is running XFCE desktop with server software, OpenSSH server. And it also has Samba share, so we can talk about that also for Windows, for instance. So you can set yourself up if you want to talk about network storage, or we can just call it simple server, whatever name you want to give it. That's what I use this box for. This is sitting behind dual firewalls, so when I show you this kind of stuff, don't bother pinging it. You won't be able to find it. So this is on my internal network, and you can do the same thing. But I'm going to mostly focus in on Grsync. I will talk about the iPhone, how you can sync your photos up also. But we can use a combination of different computers. And this is not all the computers I have. So whether it's wireless or Ethernet or both, this is wireless, Ethernet, wireless, Ethernet, wireless. So Manjaro XFCE is an Arch-based distribution. It uses Thunar for the file manager. This is Cinnamon. It uses Nemo for a file manager. And this is MX Linux XFCE. It also uses Thunar for the file manager. So these two guys have something in common as far as file managers are concerned. And generally, I don't use Windows for hardly anything. But I thought I'd throw that up there in case you wanted to do some Samba shares. Okay, I have videos on how to set this up. You can use any computer. Just to let you know, what I did was I purchased a handheld computer for under $100. I think it was around $90. It literally fits in the palm of my hand. It's that small. And I just replaced the drive on it with it had a M2 factor SSD in it. And it also had a socket for a NVMe. So I removed it and threw in an M2 NVMe drive, a 1 terabyte, which is plenty of good storage. The iPhone is actually, I use it to sync up my photos and my wife's to that little simple server because it sits on my network behind two firewalls. So my wireless router can do both, Ethernet or wireless. Of course, the iPhone is wireless. And this is also wireless. But this is Ethernet, and that's Ethernet. And I have one Windows 11 computer, which I hardly ever use. I think it's collecting dust. I generally don't need anything from Windows. Everything is in the software world that I use for Linux. I can probably picture maybe some games. But that's about it. Toward the end of the video, if you're curious, I'll talk about the software on the iPhone. In either case, folks, I know this was a long intro. I highly recommend subscription if you want to do this. Okay? I'm filming in 1080. My screen res is in 4K. Subscription key, if you don't know anything about my channel, I have well over 500 videos on all kinds of things. And you can also look up some of these videos on how to set up these kind of things. All right. So we're going to be using graphical rsync with a very special command. So you do not have to type in this stuff. Okay, I will show you how to actually do this. But this will sync remotely. And I'll also create a session set which you can sync, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folders to a remote machine. Okay, so basically that remote machine, I have the map open, is this one right here. So I'm going to be syncing files from here to here. Previous Grsync videos, I've showed you how to sync files inside your computer to an internal hard drive or USB stick. Today we're going outside the box. So let me talk a little bit about your file manager, and what I'm going to do is remove all these shortcuts and unmount things. So they are not there. So your file manager, Nemo, is pretty powerful, and you may not know it. A lot of people always say, well, you know, Linux Mint is just for new users. I beg to differ. I can say the same thing about the other XFCE desktops too. And Linux Mint does make an XFCE desktop, but it's 64-bit. And a lot of people do have 64-bit computers. Sam is our user for today, and he would like to copy some of these or rsync them. Maybe even his own tape archive backup. I showed how to do these also recently. Take a look at my 500 videos. You'll find those things in there. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is connecting. So this is Nemo. And if you are using Thunar, like Manjaro, which is an Arch-based distribution, uses Thunar for their XFCE desktops. And also MX XFCE also uses Thunar. When you're trying to connect on the networks on the Thunar file manager, you need to use the address bar. It's generally SMB:2/ and the name of the machine or IP address. Not with Cinnamon. You can just double click here. It'll find it. And these are called share points, and I just call them simple names. And this is a demo SharePoint, so these are demo files. I'm going to log in as anonymous because that's how I set it up on mx99.local. Okay, I'm not using the IP address because this is a local machine sitting behind two firewalls. And you can see the address, SMB. So if I wanted to put a shortcut of this, and I highly recommend this, is to add a bookmark. That's SharePoint 1. Now I'm going to unmount it and go here and then do number 2. Log in, do a bookmark. Now I have 2 of these. And that's all I'm going to say. You can log into here and then pull files from it. And if your SharePoints are set up to also deposit, meaning you can copy files into it, that all depends on how you set those SharePoints up. Because you can do them as read-only, or you can do them as full read-write. And sometimes if you're mixed environments, when you're doing rewrites, you'll get lock symbols on some of the files or folders. So now we're going to go into a little higher step. We're going to talk about your SSH, which is what this is running. It's running OpenSSH Server. You can find OpenSSH Server on most repositories for Linux and install them. Most, I wouldn't say all, but most Linux distros also come with the SSH client installed. Not so much Samba shares. All right, so with that said, MX99 has that service running. I can use terminal to log in there, and I'll just do a quick one here first. I'll make this larger for you. If I'm using SSH, then I would SSH into the machine with a username. So again, this sits behind a firewall. Now the @ symbol is waiting for me to type in the rest of the stuff. It's either an IP address, Internet Protocol address, or if you're using Cinnamon, or if you're using Manjaro XFCE, you can actually do name resolution. Some of the other Arch-based distributions, you'll have to use an IP address, even on your own local network. So mx99.local. That's the name of the server and on my local network. Generally, if you do this the first time, it'll say, would you like to accept the certificate? It's an encryption certificate. Yes or no. And you type in the word yes. Since you're doing this on your local network, that is fine. You don't have to use SSH keygen and create yourself a private and public key because you're not on the internet. If you know how to do that, that's fine. But if you just install OpenSSH, you should be fine. As long as you're, if you are using firewalls, you need to at least open port 22. And you will find SSH in the firewalls, at least for Mint. And also, I believe even the MX XFCE uses the same firewall. It's UFW. So for the folks that don't use firewalls, again, you shouldn't have to worry about that. I'm going to finish this off though. I need a password for T-Man. You will not see me punching anything. Now I'm logged into that machine. And I can do all kinds of magic, including updating the software. So just to give you an idea what's on there, I'm going to be using this folder right here in a couple of minutes to do backups of this machine. Here's the 2 SharePoints. Here's an Endeavor OS backup. Here's a Manjaro backup. Here's an iPhone backup. That's mine. And that's my wife's. When I get into here, you're going to laugh when you see that folder. At least the size of it. She takes pictures of everything. And that's why she runs out of memory all the time. But at least I backed up her phone for the pictures. All right, so this system here, if you're curious, I'll punch up clear. I'll use an INXI command. Some of you folks know what that is. I'll use the option of big FXE. It strips out personal stuff. So that particular machine runs about 8 gigs of RAM. It's been up for about 7 days, 9 hours. It does not use the same init system as this system here uses. Cinnamon uses System D. They use this one for P1, if you know what P1 is. But more importantly, this is MX23. And it's an XFCE desktop based off of Debian. And as we know, Linux Mint 22.1 is based off of Ubuntu, and Ubuntu is based off of Debian. Oh yeah, there's a big old chain of stuff that we can follow. All right, it's a quad-core processor. Again, this is a machine that I purchased for less than $100, and all I'm doing is file sharing with it. And it's plenty good for that process, and it fits in the palm of my hand. And when I got it, it was, like I said, it was less than $100, and then I ended up upgrading to an NVMe because they had a socket on there. And now my NVMe on that machine is 1 terabyte. And it's an older SSD, but plenty good. Samsung, 980, 1 terabyte. Okay, system information. I can also just look at the file system. And I can do lots of things in here. I'm going to exit. Now I'm on my local machine. A little bit more horsepower on this one and lots more RAM. 32 gigs of RAM on this machine. And this is Cinnamon. And this is 22.1. And you can see that I'm using an 8-core AMD Ryzen on this machine with a fancy graphics card. Now I'm going to get out of the screen. We're going to now log into that machine using a file manager. I'm going to hit Control L to highlight the address bar and type in, you can type in sftp if you like. I like SSH because I just tap SS twice and an H. It's quicker. And don't forget the colon. 2 forward slashes. T-Man is the user at, and since this machine doesn't exist on the internet, I can use either the IP address of your local machine or the name in this case, because Cinnamon does address resolution. So mx99.local. Not all Linux machines do this. Endeavor OS KD Plasma, I had to use the IP address because it wouldn't find that when I do it like this. In either case, if it comes up and says, would you accept the security certificate, then just answer the question, yes. Then it'll ask for the username and password on the first pass, or maybe just the password because you put the username in there. And then it'll stay logged in all day until you log back out. Now this machine is currently SFTP, even though I typed in SSH. It's the same thing. One more reminder if you're using firewalls. If it's not working for you, are you using a firewall on these machines? If you are, you need port 22 open. You can find that, like this machine here, MX XFCE and also Linux Mint XFCE uses the same firewalls. They are GovW, and this Cinnamon uses the same firewall. Okay. I think I had this set up earlier. So let me turn it on briefly. So you can see that I have SSH, and you can actually turn that on and find it if you're doing that. I have a full video on how to do this. Okay. I'm just waiting for it to turn off. All right. So again, if you're using firewalls and you're hosting your network storage, you make sure that the appropriate things are running if you're running firewalls, because you need to be able to go through that port. And port 22 is generally the default for SSH. All right, now I'm in here. I will open up the master home folder. And if I just started out, this is the file that I'm going to be using with Grsync. And I can create folders. So I created one that says exactly the same name as this machine, LM221. That's the name of this computer. So I created a folder here, and these, believe it or not, are the backups as the result of this. Backup folder is here, and it's actually a tar file, which is another backup of the backup, as they say. But these are sync ups. So this one is documents, and they're exactly the same as our user today. And then the other folders. So we are copying that folder, this, and pictures, and these three is what we're copying here. So when this is mounted, you can sync these. Okay? So I'm going to hit the play button. If you don't get an error right away, it's running. And it actually just verified that all of these folders are actually in sync with this computer and the remote computer with that folder, this folder right here. All of these folders are in sync, all 5 of them. If this is not mounted, then you get an error. Okay, because we can't contact the actual machine. This is not mounted. Okay, because of the security certificates that are involved with using SSH. So now I'm going to talk about the importance of that, because I haven't talked about actually saving it as a bookmark. So you can start by either clicking this and highlighting that line, or you just do a Control-L and then type in SSH or sftp, whichever you prefer. My username on that machine is that, and the name of the computer, .local, or I can use the IP address. Now once I'm logged into here, then I bookmark it. And now you can see it here. Now even though I eject that, which is currently going to fail my rsync if I, did I close it? I guess I did. But it's still holding it open. So all of these are independent connections. I set them up all differently. Basically, they're just different folders. But believe it or not, this line here will be copied, not hand-typed. The thing about graphical rsync or Grsync is you can do point and click. I'm not going to make you type in anything. But what I'm doing here, though, is all of these folders are being synced to that machine called MX99, but it's not mounted. That's why I'm getting errors. When this is mounted, though, then this will work. So far, so good. And what it's doing is, this is a beautiful message when you have that many folders. That means all of these are in sync on that remote machine. All of them. So how do you set this up individually? I'm going to go with default and maybe assume that some of you folks never done this. And if some of you have, that's great. But there is going to be users online that are watching this video that have never done this. So generally we have sessions, and they're just shortcuts. And we have 3 tabs for options, and generally you just leave the defaults and you should be good to go on most things. But I would start with the plus key when you're creating something and trying to save it. In addition, what I did in here is I have what they call session backups. And these all have the extension of Grsync in it. So these things that you see in this menu, that is the copies of them, minus this ugly one here, which I don't really need. I'm going to delete that one. So a lot of these are what these are, okay? So I start with a clean slate. I hit the plus key, and we're going to start with a standard session, and then we're going to do session sets in a little bit. Those are more powerful. They do multi-folders. This is just a single. So I will call this one test 1. Hopefully it doesn't exist. If it does, it'll complain. And that's just a name I gave it for the session. Now you need to pick a source and a destination. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to eject my mounted drive for MX99. And let you see what happens when you do this. You pick a folder. What do you want? You can pick it from here or you can pick it from here. It doesn't matter. So if I wanted to do my junk 2, I hit open. And that puts the path of it in here. That is now my source. That is what I'm going to be copying. And where are you going to copy it to? If I do the open thing, I could do the local backup folder, which is already created. Or, better yet, move it off this hard drive into maybe a backup hard drive. And if I wanted Sam's backup there, then I would just do that, and there's the path. That would be this drive. Okay? And this is now my junk 2, and I'm going to replace that file. So hit the play button, and you can see it being created. And this is finished. So how do you do a network one, though? All right, so let's go back to default. And we're going to leave this off right now. One of the things about doing some of this kind of stuff is you need to see errors once in a while to understand things. So a lot of times when I make errors, it sinks in better than for me just to watch something that works all the time. So I'm going to create an error. So I'm going to first start with something. So we're going to call this one test 2. Otherwise, test 1 already exists. We're going to not use that just yet and create my junk 2. And we're going to try to look for that server right here. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to create an rsync command from here to number 2. That's running the simple server or NAS storage. All right. And we already logged in there earlier because I created a folder there. And that's how you can do that before you start this. So when you hit open, you generally go to other locations and you notice it's not here. It's not showing up until you mount this. So if your file manager is closed, you can still leave this open. Open up your file manager and you go mount your share on that particular machine you're using on your network. Then you'll see it right there. All right, I'm going to close that. And this is very, very important to understand this. Otherwise, you're going to be overwriting files on that server if you do not do this properly. So right now, it's asking me to pick a folder. Do not hit open. I'll tell you what happens if you do. It'll override if you have another folder. Let's say that says, let's make it a little bit more normal, like documents. So when I do this, and that, and if I leave this, this will override the documents folder on that machine. That's not what you want. That is not what you want. I said it twice. I don't want to replace this folder with Sam's documents. I already have this on the other machine. There's a reason for this. I wanted them in here, but that's not what this says. So you be careful with this. So if you wanted to refix that without having to hand type this, click this on as providing you're already mounted. You click that and you make sure you open the folder. Otherwise it'll replace that one. That's what you want. Double check the tail end of your path. You make sure that it's the proper folder you want that to be on. Now it will rsync this over to this folder here. I will prove that to you. I have the authority to delete things remotely. So generally I also need to sometimes put one of these over here, or you can use the reload command, but if you don't have the tool, all right, it's this one right here. If that is like this on your address bar, toolbar, click that and you'll see it there. That refreshes the screen. So right now I have 4 folders because I deleted the documents folder on purpose. So we have a source, which is home SAM documents. We're going to be rsyncing that to /run user 1000 gvfs /sftp hostname mx99 local. That means this machine. And that username. And more importantly, where is it going? It's going to that folder. If that is missing, do not hit that button. You will replace the original documents folder on that system. That's not what you want. You want to put it in a different folder. So I'm putting it in LM221 on that machine. Toggling the entry. This is not the local machine. Just to be absolutely clear. And why do I emphasize this heavily? Because I've done this myself by not paying attention to that last line. Now I'm going to hit the play button. Now it's in process, but I can still hit that and you can see the folder being created right here. That part is quick. The rest of the files that is updating in here takes a couple more. Now rsync is always slow the first time and then it speeds up the second time because rsync is very smart. Rsync, once it completes, all these files are currently what I have currently here. So whatever Sam has in here is what's also in here. Okay, they're just no thumbnails. Well, you got partial thumbnails. You get the idea? And it's very common on network drives. So more importantly though, when I hit the play button again, all it's doing is verifying. Did something change? No, nothing. But this is pretty smart when it does that. So how does rsync know that a file has been changed? If you're not aware of this, we have properties of files. We have attributes that say access created and modified. Rsync knows when you make changes. And when you do, and it finds that this file is different, let me give you an example. I'm in Sam's documents right now. I'm going to open this text file and it has 3325. I'm going to skip a couple of lines and say hello world. Okay, then I'm going to save it. This again is in Sam's home folder documents. So I changed that file just now. Over here, this documents folder doesn't have that changed just yet. Is that the file I changed? Yes. So now that you see what that looks like, I'm going to hit the play button again. And it looks like it didn't do anything. Well, actually it did. There's hello world on the remote machine. This is not my local. So I'm on MX99 local right now, and that just updated that file. The other thing is we can do delete on destination also. So again, I'm using this just as a guinea pig. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and go up to his folder and dump out test 888. Delete, Casper, gone. And go back into that machine and let's just see that it will actually auto delete that folder. This one I have highlighted when I do this one. So delete on destination just means everything that is on your local machine documents is going to be synced over to here, and that includes removing files. You be careful with this one. All I need to do is do a screen refresh and you'll see the folder gone. So that's what that is used for, to make sure that you are absolutely in sync, file for file, folder for folder. However, there are a lot of people that like to preserve files. That means don't delete anything. Just keep adding and changing. So if you alter the file, not a problem. It's the deleting part that this needs to have the authority to delete files. But again, you saw how I did this. This has to be mounted for me to get that line in here. So if this is not mounted, one more time, you cannot see it in here. That means you can't select it. You can select the other drives though. That's not a problem. But it needs to be mounted for you to see that. And now you do. And please don't forget to click on the folder. Don't leave it like this. It is so easy to hit this and hit that, and it will wipe out the document folder on this system. Literally replacing that folder right there with your current one. That's not what you want. You want to be making sure that you put this in a different folder. And all you got to do is open it. And then you can see it on the tail end. I'm saying this many, many times because of the importance of this. You don't want to wipe out an existing folder with the same name. You want to put it into a different folder. In this case, LM221, because that's the name of this computer. All right, so we're done with that so far. So this is how I created all of these. So starting with pics, let me get rid of test 1. I don't need that anymore. Starting with pics at the bottom, it's pictures. Going over to this machine here, I made sure that it says LM221, the folder name. Delete on destination, I'm good with that. If I wanted to export the session, I would do it this way. I already created the folder for Grsync session backs. Those are backups. And you can just save your sessions if they're working. Okay? In case you make a mistake and you delete that out by mistake. You can always just import it. So I'm going to get rid of that. It's going to ask for a confirmation, but if you overlook it, it's gone. It's Casper. But you can still import it as long as you had exported it earlier. So, which one was it? Sorry. I need to look back in here. Let me try this one more time. Oh, it's pics. Okay. Which is this one. And now it's all back online. Okay, everything looks good? Yes. So that one has delete on destination. My junk 2, which is this folder right here. That one also has delete on destination. Going over to the path of MX99, going to that folder. That one is good. My junk folder, next one over. Going to the same path, delete on destination. Documents, same folder. And back, which is this right here. And this is an, what type of backup? This is a tar.gz. You can see how big it is. But I can also sync that up, and I have. Delete on destination, that generally does not get wiped out because this file keeps changing names. So that one there, not really super important. I would just get rid of them manually. So, and then all. How do you create this though? All right, so that one is done with default, plus, and all 2. or actually a better name for that would be MX99 all 2. In other words, all of the folders that I've created, and you do it as a session set. That gives you these options, and you can select what you want. This will be nothing. And this is all of the MX connectors that I just created. Backup folder, documents, my junk 2, and pictures. I could also include the backup for this drive, if I wanted to, all in one job. So these are session shortcuts. But I can also just double check this. So all I'm doing here is if I hit play, it'll verify that all of these haven't changed, which is done in this folder right here. So it's sending out an incremental list and checking it. It just went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folders on your local machine and the remote machine to verify files. That's how quickly this thing worked. That's why Grsync is very powerful. Locally, it works even faster. But generally, Grsync is fairly quick on a fairly quick network. And you can see how fast that was done. It verified all these folders that are actually in sync with the user called Sam on that machine. So this is Grsync in a nutshell. Graphical Grsync. All right, so I will unmount everything and empty the trash and leave my bookmarks alone. Now let me talk about, let me go back into my folder in here on that SharePoint. So again, opening the map. What I'm doing is looking on this machine right here for folders. And one of them is from my iPhone, personal phone, that I sync up here, that I sync my photos with, and also my wife's. So as I told you that little joke earlier, my wife's likes to take a lot of pictures. Her folder is 19 gigabytes. Yeah, she's got a lot of videos and photos. 6,000. We got to stop her here one of these days. She's constantly filling her phone up. Me, on the other hand, that's mine. I've only got 8 gigabytes. It's still a lot, though, but 9 is not as high as hers. So I back up my phones this way, and if I just need to have a quick something, I'll open this up, and that's the last image. And that's a picture of this desktop that I just took a picture of it. You can actually see it. I just took this about a half an hour ago. All right, so these don't have any thumbnails, and I'm not going to show you all my personal pictures, so don't go there. But I did have some screenshots for you if you're curious about this software that's running on the iPhone. So one more time with the picture. I use a piece of software that I could also use KDE Connect on to do this here. But I'm using a different piece of software today. And that piece of software, you're going to find this ugly because I redacted all this information on my screen. It's called File Browser Pro. It does come at a cost though. It's the only piece of software out of this whole video that I paid for. It's like 14 bucks, but it can be used by 6 devices. So me and the wife both use the same thing. And I can set up a sync tab in here where it'll sync up the photos to MX99. Now the terminal one, I believe, is free. It has a terminal and then the hash symbol or pound symbol. I believe you can get that one free, and then you can also install a ping tool in case you need that. But this has to be on my local network when I do this sync up. And the screen looks like this for all kinds of things you can connect to, including sftp, which is not represented here because they got cut off. But it can also do all these services, and more importantly, when you open the tool up, you'll see your photo library on your iPhone. And you can hit that little dashes, and you can set up a sync tab. And you can have it done automatically or manually. I have mine set to manual sync. I don't take as many photos as my wife does. But anyways, let's move on from there. And what the sync tab looks like after you set it up looks like that. And you can actually see the name of the machine right there. And the name of the user even. And where it's going. And when it was last synced up, which was yesterday at 2:24 p.m. And all I do is hit that button. As long as I'm logged in locally on the network, this is wireless, I'm able to sync up to MX99 rather easily. If you are wanting to do something with terminal on an iPhone, you can install that tool. It's just called Terminal Pound in the App Store. And when you open it up, you can set up servers. Now, these two are disabled right now, but this one here actually is functional. And you can actually see it says SSH tman at MX99 local, and it's using port 22, which is default for SSH. I click that, and it looks like this. And now I will be logged into this machine the same way. Oops, forgot the 99 part. It's whatever the name of your machine is. That's the name of mine. I still need a password here. But the other application takes care of that. Now I put the wrong password in there, permission denied. Let's try a good password. Yes, there's security built into this. All right, you can basically see that's colored. It has the same roughly, this is a little brighter, but generally that's what I'm looking at. And I can run the same commands here as I can in this terminal box by using the tiny keyboard on the iPhone. And when I click this converts that also to function keys. So again, you can use an iPhone for doing that also. And probably Android has the same applications. I'm at 42 minutes. Hopefully you found this entertainment. So whether you want to purchase a tiny computer or you want to repurpose one, maybe you got one laying around. But keep in mind when you're doing syncing, whether it's the iPhone or any of these other computers, these things normally need to be running. So this particular computer that I have is a handheld computer, and once I set it up, I pull the monitor out of it. It's an HDMI port, and also the keyboard and mouse, and basically just leave the power on. It's real low in power, and also in resources too. But again, all I'm using it for is file sharing and to make backups for the iPhones. But whether you use Manjaro XFCE, whether you use MX Linux XFCE, or even Linux Mint XFCE, that's what I would recommend on some of these smaller boxes. And then you set up OpenSSH server as a bare minimum, and you can also install Samba shares. And again, I'm not going to cover that in this video. I do have some of that in my older videos. Thank you for watching.